What happened when a seasoned host asked Elon Musk about loneliness of being on the top? The answer would reshape how millions view success and sacrifice. The studio gleamed under the soft lights of San Francisco's most prestigious broadcasting center. Tonight's interview was supposed to be another headline-grabbing exposé about tech billionaires, but fate had other plans. Marcus Chen, the celebrated host of Hard Truths, sat in his signature charcoal chair, his reputation for making tech titans squirm preceding him. His researchers had spent weeks crafting the perfect questions to challenge the world's richest man. But something felt different tonight. The usual pre-show buzz was tinged with an unfamiliar tension. Even the veteran crew members found themselves checking their equipment twice, 3 times, sensing this wouldn't be just another interview. Then he walked in. Elon Musk, dressed in his characteristic black t-shirt and jeans, carried himself with an air that seemed more contemplative than his usual confident demeanor. Something in his eyes suggested he wasn't here for the usual verbal sparring. What unfolded next would force millions to question everything they believed about success, loneliness, and the true cost of chasing impossible dreams. The interview began like many others, with Marcus touching on Tesla's latest innovations and SpaceX's recent launches. His questions were sharp, calculated, each one designed to chip away at Musk's composed exterior. "Your companies are transforming multiple industries simultaneously," Marcus noted, his tone carrying a hint of challenge. "Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, X, you're juggling more than most people can imagine. How do you manage it all?" Elon's response was characteristically direct, but there was something different in his voice tonight. "You know, people often ask about the management strategies, the decision-making processes." He paused, a subtle smile crossing his face. "But they're missing the bigger picture." The audience leaned forward imperceptibly. Even Marcus sensed a shift in the atmosphere. This wasn't the rehearsed tech talk they were expecting. "The bigger picture," Marcus pressed, seeing an opening. His next words would veer from his prepared script, asking something more personal, more profound. The studio lights seemed to dim slightly, as if the room itself was holding its breath. What happened next would reveal a side of Elon Musk that no interview had ever captured before. Marcus adjusted his tie, his voice softening. "Let me ask you something different, Elon. Something I think everyone wonders, but nobody asks." The look that crossed Musk's face suggested he already knew what was coming. Marcus leaned forward, his voice carrying a mix of curiosity and carefully crafted concern. "Do you ever feel lonely at the top?" he asked. "Being the richest person in the world, pushing boundaries that most people can't even comprehend. Does it ever feel isolating?" The studio fell silent. Production assistants froze mid-task. Even the gentle hum of the air conditioning seemed to pause. For a moment, Elon sat perfectly still, his eyes focused on some distant point beyond the studio walls. The silence stretched until it nearly became uncomfortable. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. Not his usual confident grin, but something more genuine, almost vulnerable. "You know," he began, his voice softer than anyone had heard before, "people always assume that loneliness comes from being at the top." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But they're asking the wrong question." Marcus blinked, clearly thrown off script. This wasn't the defensive response he'd anticipated. The audience held their collective breath, sensing they were about to witness something extraordinary. "The real question," Elon continued, his eyes now meeting Marcus's directly, "isn't about being lonely at the top. It's about understanding why some of us are willing to sacrifice everything to get there." The raw honesty in his voice caught everyone off guard. What he said next would change how millions view the relationship between success, purpose, and human connection. "Let me tell you something about loneliness," Elon said, shifting forward in his chair. "When I was working on my first company, sleeping on the office floor, showering at the YMCA, people called me crazy. That was lonely." His voice carried a weight that seemed to press against everyone's chest. "When I put my last $40 million into SpaceX and Tesla, watching them nearly fail in 2008 while everyone said it was impossible. That was lonely. The studio was absolutely still now. Even Marcus had forgotten his role as interviewer, completely absorbed in the moment. But here's what most people don't understand, Elon continued, his eyes revealing an intensity that the cameras barely captured. The loneliest moments aren't at the top. They're when you're staring at problems that everyone else says are unsolvable, and you can't shake the feeling that maybe they're right. He paused, a slight smile touching his lips. You want to know what drives me? It's not money, it's not power. It's the 3 a.m. moments when you're working on something that could change humanity's future, and you realize that if you don't solve it, maybe nobody will. The audience sat transfixed. What Elon said next would redefine how the world views the relationship between genius, ambition, and the human spirit. You ask if I'm lonely at the top, Elon continued, his voice growing stronger with conviction. But what most people see as the top is just a side effect. When you're trying to make life multiplanetary, accelerate sustainable energy, or develop technology to protect humanity's future, there's no top to reach. There's only tomorrow's problem to solve. His eyes sparked with an inner fire that made even the skeptics in the room lean forward. The truth is, I've never felt more connected than when working alongside people who share these impossible dreams. My team at SpaceX, at Tesla, they're not just employees. They're fellow crazy ones who believe we can change the world. Marcus sat speechless, his prepared questions forgotten. In the front row, a young engineer wiped away tears. So, no, I don't feel lonely, Elon said, his voice softening. What I feel is the weight of purpose. And let me tell you something about purpose that nobody talks about. He paused, looking directly into the camera, speaking now not just to the studio audience but to every dreamer, every innovator, every person who'd ever felt crazy for believing in something bigger than themselves. The words that followed would not only go viral but would inspire a generation of entrepreneurs and innovators to redefine their relationship with success. Purpose isn't about being at the top, Elon said, his voice carrying a quiet intensity. It's about being exactly where you need to be to make a difference. Sometimes that's in a garage with your last dollar. Sometimes it's on a global stage, but it's never about being alone. He leaned forward, speaking with rare emotional openness. When people look at success, they see the headlines, the net worth, the achievements. What they don't see are the 3 a.m. texts with my engineers, the failed launches where we picked each other up, the moments of breakthrough where we celebrated together. A tear glistened in Marcus's eye, his hard-hitting journalist persona completely forgotten. The studio audience sat motionless, captivated. You want to know what keeps me up at night? Elon continued, his voice barely above a whisper yet filling the entire studio. It's not loneliness. It's the realization that we have the ability to make humanity a multiplanetary species, to revolutionize clean energy, to push the boundaries of what's possible. And the real question is, will we do it in time? His words resonated with something deep in everyone present. Camera operators stopped checking their equipment, producers stopped checking their watches. What happened next would transform how millions view the relationship between success, purpose, and human connection. Here's the impactful conclusion section. The real loneliness, Elon said, a gentle smile forming, isn't at the top. It's in letting fear stop you from climbing in the first place. It's in not pursuing the dreams that keep you awake at night. It's in looking back and wondering, what if? Marcus attempted to regain his composure, but before he could speak, Elon continued with words that would echo across social media for months to come. Every person who's ever changed the world was called crazy at first. They were told they were alone in their beliefs. But here's what I've learned. You're never alone when you're working on something bigger than yourself. The studio erupted in spontaneous applause. Even the most hardened critics in the room found themselves moved by the raw authenticity of his words. Within hours, the interview went viral. #PurposeNotLoneliness and #ElonUnfiltered trended worldwide. But unlike typical viral moments, this sparked something deeper, a global conversation about success, purpose, and human connection. Tech founders shared their own stories of sleepless nights and impossible dreams. Students wrote about reimagining their futures. Even rival CEOs admitted the interview had moved them to tears. But perhaps the most powerful impact came from an unexpected source. A week later, Marcus Chen himself published a personal essay. "I came to expose loneliness at the top. Instead, I discovered something more valuable, that true success isn't about being at the top alone, it's about lifting others up along the way." If this story touched you, if it made you think differently about success and purpose, share it with someone who needs to hear its message. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines to find the heart of what matters. Because sometimes the greatest insights come from the questions we think we already know the answers to.